RealPodcasts.com proudly presents The Wrestling is Real Podcast, because wrestling needs us. Presented by KingofAmazon.com. When you think of Amazon, think KingofAmazon.com. Greetings and salutations. Welcome to episode number 499 of the Wrestling is Real Podcast. KOP here with you. We're here to recap NXT Takeover War Games and Survivor Series that happened this weekend. And here's where I'm at with everything when it comes to both shows. When you look at NXT as a whole and the focus that was the spotlight that was given on this product for the last month, ever since the day after Crown Jewel. Now, I'm not going to say much about what was being said about how NXT was portrayed on the main roster. We'll talk some about that, but really there's not much to be said about that. But I will say there's a few things that really made me think about where things are right now with the product overall. And here's where I think about things. So listen, a Survivor Series was a good show. I give it a B. NXT TakeOver War Games, an A. It's the best WWE show that they've had this year. Pretty much, so I'll just say it like that. And that's what we've been basically saying about NXT anyway. Even with all the changes that have been going on, NXT has been pretty consistent, and they have had to step their game up somewhat with all the things that are going on. So I can't knock them for that. But what it comes down to is NXT is the best thing that WWE has going for it today. We understand that very well. NXT, when it was originally thought of as an attachment to the Performance Center, well, it's not. The Performance Center and NXT are really two of their own, because there's not that many people that are really making it well onto the main roster as a result of NXT in terms of the developmental talent. Because you look at the developmental talent that they have, you know, there's not much of it. Kona Reeves, Velveteen Dream are some of the names I can think of when I look at NXT and their main roster. In terms of talent that has been curated by them overnight. Then I look at the rest of the roster. Okay, there is Aaliyah. Of the people that I know of that I've seen on TV, Babatunde, you can say Bianca Belair is part of that group. Vanessa Bourne, Luke Menzies, Tainara Conti. Those are the type of the names I think of when I think of NXT, of the developmental part of the brand. Otherwise, everybody else has come from somewhere else. Everybody else that they have on the roster, right now, it's all indie talent. Veteran indie talent they have on that roster. From Hector Garza Jr. to all the Ring of Honor stars, Undisputed Era. All of them are former Ring of Honor stars. To Damian Priest, to Keith Lee, to Donovan Dijakovic. All Ring of Honor talent. High-profile Ring of Honor or high-profile indie talent, recognizable from wherever. They could have been from Shine, Stardom. They could be from PWG, Evolve, Impact, what have you. And then you look at the names that they actually had as part of NXT War Games and Survivor Series, and you see the names that are there. When you look at the War Games list, you say to yourself, okay, of the people that were on there, so Isaiah Swerve Scott, well, he's been through Lucha Underground and MLW and Angel Garza we know of. And when you look at the Survivor Series, the War Games matches we had last night, again, all. Okay, am I right? Yes. All 8 participants in the War Games match for the men, they're all former Ring of Honor talent. All of them worked there for a considerable amount of time. That tells you everything you need to know about this whole division. When you look at the team that they had for the women's War Game match, again, it's all really popular indie talent that's out there. And that's what we have. Pete Dunne from the UK. Killian Dane, also UK talented. Matt Riddle, coming from the mixed martial arts world. Same thing with Shayna Baszler. I mean, you can say Matt Riddle and Shayna Baszler are also part of developmental, a little bit more of that, but really, they've made names for themselves. I mean, they're not just, I mean, they might be new and fresh to wrestling, but they're recognizable names to the mixed martial arts world and making their way into here, just like how a Cain Velasquez comes in, someone like that. That's different. But we're talking about people that actually have a name and actually have made a career for themselves outside of WWE. And that's what NXT is relying on. But also, the other thing that you also notice about all this talent here, no matter how good this talent is, how many of them could feasibly cut enough material to make a 20-minute promo or to really build up a feud about with any particular substance? I mean, how many layers do all these people have? Not much, or if any. Out of last night's TakeOver card, I would say Kevin Owens probably was the only person, and maybe Tommaso Ciampa. Those are the only two that have any kind of layers to themselves as to know who they are, where we can sustain any kind of a main roster storyline if they could tell it. But they really can't. There's not much of that there at all. So think about it like that. Now, what does that say to the mainstream audience when the NXT stars come in here and they, you know, the mainstream audience was not watching War Games last night. Your diehard of the diehard of the diehard audience, your indie audience was probably watching NXT last night because there's a lot of familiar names that got pulled into this brand that are under the polished guise of WWE, and they're kind of given the leeway to kind of do what they do. And then you can see a little bit of the difference when they have to go and do WWE style in Survivor Series. Big difference. My point about all this is that NXT, as I said, and this, I'm just reading word for word from my description just to make my point. They are the answer to all other indie promotions. So if they wanted to get the hardcore wrestling audience, the certain diss that WWE used to have gotten for years, that they just have a certain style and they can't accept hardcore wrestling, traditional, like real school indie wrestling, that they were out of touch. Well, Triple H has proven that NXT is not out of touch. If you want the straight up wrestling of the indies, then you have it on NXT, and that could be the end all be all to many. Because NXT is the WWE's answer to all the other promotions out there, all the major independents. They're the answer to AEW, the answer to Impact, to MLW, to New Japan, all of them. To Ring of Honor, all of them. This is their answer to them. This is the way they want to respond, so they don't have to worry about that. But meanwhile, their main roster, their main product is lost. There is no trajectory, nothing going. We're going into WrestleMania season coming up in about 5 weeks, and there's not a real plan in place yet. And there's a few things they might have that are going to be ready to be brought together, but really, there's not much there. You're talking about a very almost insignificant main event field that's up there right now that fans really care about worldwide. Of the mainstream audience base, there's only a couple people they might even recognize or care about. Otherwise, WWE is consumed of a bloated mid-card. Everybody's in the middle. Everybody's parity booked. And there are some jobbers. But the mid-card is so huge, and there's such a small, insignificant, minuscule main event card. At the moment, I think they've done a couple of things to help rehabilitate a couple of stars. I will say that Daniel Bryan now turning back into a face and getting out of this earthy character, the new Daniel Bryan character, and basically coming back to his original self. He's kind of back to where he was, so that's a good spot for Daniel Bryan to coming into the where he is right now. He can be put still as a top brand name, so that's good. But again, Daniel Bryan only has so much of a shelf life left. I mean, he's getting up there in age. And then you got Roman Reigns. And it looks apparent that Roman Reigns is going to get himself back into the main event picture. He's going to get back to be the top guy. But I remember again, Daniel Bryan's 38 years old. Now, he's still got a bunch of years in front of him, but I mean, how long can he kind of sustain where he's at? I mean, he's been around with WWE for a long time and working his way through, but still, where he's at right now, there's only so much of him he's going to be able to do to continue to keep himself at a certain pace, at a certain level in his time. Plus, you got to remember, as Jim Ross would say, his bump card is pretty full. I mean, we're actually getting him on borrowed time for the fact he did retire for a while and then was able to make his way back. But it's going to be almost 10 years we've had Daniel Bryan in front of us. I mean, he's not necessarily just the same star he can always be. I mean, even though he did have a couple of years respite, still, there's only so much that can be done. Now, with Roman Reigns, they want to position him back as a top guy again, which is the most important thing they needed to do. This guy has to turn into a John Cena, Batista, Brock Lesnar, Undertaker type. He has to become that big a star. And they're going to have to pull any kind of protection off of him and just let him stand out there. Because I think he's at a point right now where Roman Reigns can be brought up as a top guy, as a champion again. And I think people are going to accept him. They're not going to shit all over him. As for Seth Rollins, he needs to turn heel. Will he turn heel? I don't know. But it would be a good idea for him to turn heel. It's enough for everything else he's doing right now. With that said, the NXT crowd that watches this show, the Chicago crowd is atypical of the best possible scenario of an audience that WWE could wish they could have every year. And that's where they're at right now. So they're lucky that the crowd actually responded well to Survivor Series tonight because of the NXT influence and because NXT won the night when it came to everything that was going on, which that right there should be a storyline in itself as to how NXT was able to dominate all these other matches. I mean, NXT won the Survivor Series match for the women. Lio Rush won. Pre-show that really doesn't necessarily consume. But then you're saying, okay, Roderick Strong won over AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura. And then you had Shayna Baszler win in the Champions Triple Threat match later on the night to close out the show. So that right there is everything you got to think about. We're at a point where we're in a tough spot with NXT because of how they dominated. So you look at all the people that stood out, NXT was made to look like an equal to everybody. There was no point at all, I don't think, where anybody really looked like they got squashed. The only time I think anybody got squashed was Walter at the hands of Braun Strowman, right? That's about it. But other than that, everybody else is just where they are. And NXT looks strong. NXT is now an equal to the other brands. So calling up any stars from Raw to SmackDown doesn't make a difference anymore. It doesn't matter. And now it is what it is. But the bottom line is NXT and that roster doesn't show anyone that has the kind of promo ability or the attributes to help further become a main eventer in WWE, because they have to be able to create some other stars there, something. But at the moment, they don't have anybody right now that could come in with their gimmick and just take over. No pun intended, but really, who could just come in and confront Roman Reigns and take his spot? There isn't. I mean, of everybody, like I said, Kevin Owens is the one guy with promo ability that has every attribute needed to be a top star, and he is. Like, they made a big deal out of him last night at TakeOver because he is a top star. When he goes into NXT, he's a big dog. And he got an incredible pop. He got an Attitude Era pop. Kevin Castle was right. He got an Austin pop. It sounded great. I haven't heard that in a long time. But regardless, NXT is not helping the main roster, and it's not their fault. It's because WWE has been too concerned about trying to evolve their style to try to keep up with what the independents, what other wrestling fans want. And they've been listening to the main wrestling fans for too long. The diehard wrestling fans they've been listening to. Have they responded to them very well? No. But there have been times they've capitulated. Remember, at the start of this year, they completely capitulated to this crowd for at least 9 months, 10 months. From this time last year, after Survivor Series, around TLC time, actually, it was after TLC, all the way up until October. And then everything changed. Remember, after Extreme Rules, and look at what all happened. Things just went downhill badly. And this WWE has not been able to recover. Again, Paul Heyman was able to right the ship and stop from any further damage. But the damage has already been done. The ratings have gone down. They're in their new broadcast contracts, and things are not that good right now. They're not in a good spot. So you got to say to yourself, WWE is not willing to put the effort in to be able to get all these guys, all this talent, good working wrestling talent. Don't get me wrong. Listen, NXT has some exceptional talent. Everybody that was on TakeOver last night is top notch. Everybody that competed on the Survivor Series, top notch. They're all comparable at the level of the main roster. All of them. Not even a question there. But their problem is the entertainment side of them. They just can't be good wrestlers. They just can't be one-dimensional. Matt Riddle, with his one-dimensional bro gimmick, will not get over by itself. There are not enough diehard fans in every arena, at every live show they go to, at every Raw and SmackDown taping, that's going to overcome the fact that most of these people, when they come up to the main roster, they become nothing. Look at how they used to cheer for Viking Raiders and Aleister Black. They now get crickets, all of them. That is WWE's fault. That is theirs to blame. It's their fault. And the fans are just going to eat it up. So they don't care about what happens. They're upset about, lack of storyline, lack of storytelling, lack of gimmicks, lack of pushes. But remember, think of what the WWE style is supposed to be. What are they doing right now that's making anything really good that people can get behind and it draws mainstream attention? Has anyone drawn mainstream attention? And unfortunately, some of the people they have that might be interesting at all, I mean, they're just treating them horribly. Believe it or not, Baron Corbin it's like a broken record. They have used him and they have really done a shitty job with him, and for the most part. But all in all, I could definitely see that guy, if he's worked with right, he could be damn good. He could be a real good prick heel. But they do such a shitty job with him right now. His placeholder feud right now with Roman Reigns has been pitiful. And they put him in there. They didn't make a big deal out of it. But really, Baron Corbin, they are sadly in need of a real strong prick heel, and they don't have one on the SmackDown side. Now, Brock Lesnar is there, but he's not the other. They need another heel to be standing out there. At the least, you need to have a little bit of something to say, okay, well, who's Roman Reigns going to have to be the guy that he has to normally deal with? If you could make Baron Corbin a better heel and give him some better material to work off of, that would be different. Because he's a traditional heel. I would like Baron Corbin to be like a damn Sabisco heel. Or Ric Flair style heel. Not talking like Ric Flair and, this and that. I'm talking about, the chicken shit heel. But they don't do that to Roman Reigns. There's a certain way about him. They don't use him right. Roman Reigns, it looks like they're going to finally put back the rock on him. Now that it's been well past a year since the leukemia diagnosis turned back around, or since the leukemia diagnosis came into be, and probably at least about 6 months or so since the diagnosis turned around, and he's back in full force. So now they could put the rock back on him, go back out there, and win it for his kid. That's what they had to do with Roman Reigns. Well, then you're branded the same way. But then the NXT roster being so dominant, the one thing I hope that Survivor Series creates is that it creates a rift between all that talent and saying, guess what? We're all mediocre and we're all shit. Like, you look at the people that did not do well last night. Well, that's good. I mean, then let's get everybody upset with each other and honestly change the way they're doing things, man. Insta feuds, insta matches. Oh, this person got slapped in the face, and then after commercial break, we have a match. The parody booking, the obvious turns and things that they do. Everything is so convoluted and so cheesy and so predictable. This is all got to get thrown out the window. All of it. They have to toss this out, and they have to build a better mousetrap. They have to do some changes that are much more unpredictable than ever before. They're not. It's so predictable because they feel like with this global audience, that's what they have to do. And people will just still stick around. But there's nothing that draws any attention by anybody else out there outside of the bubble of WWE. And I don't know what they're going to do about that. Anyway, I want to get into the both shows itself and talk about them extensively. Let's go and do that first of all. And I want to get to the card because there's a whole lot more I have to say about this whole issue with NXT that I will bring up and further my argument coming up on episode 500 of the Wrestling is Real podcast coming up. So this Wednesday going into Thursday, I'll have that all for you right here at kingofpodcasts.com. So check that out. Hope to try to get some other people to come on board and join me, or I'll figure out something to do. I don't know. See if I do something special for that night. But anyway, yes, Wrestling is Real 500 this coming Wednesday going into Thursday right here at kingofpodcasts.com. Tell everybody to come on board and check it out. Now, I will take more time to talk about what's going on with NXT and the influence it has on WWE in general. So, with Survivor Series tonight, Dolph Ziggler, Robert Roode eliminate the Street Profits in a 10-team interbrand tag team battle royal. Okay. Leo Rush retains the NXT Cruiserweight Championship. Viking Raiders in the triple threat tag team match over New Day and Undisputed Era. And it was a good match, by the way. Good start. It was actually quite a good match for the pre-show. Very surprised. You know, I know they were all talking about on the pre-show panel, oh, look at how big deal. And like they were trying to steal the show. Like, listen, they were good. Like Viking Raiders probably had their best showing to the main audience that they had of any match since they left NXT. And that looked good for them. I don't know if anybody actually watched it, but Viking Raiders actually looked pretty good right there. Give them credit there. I think it helped with Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly being in that match. I think it made a big difference as well. Now, 28 minutes for the 5-on-5 Women's Survivor Series Triple Threat Elimination match. A couple of things I want to make a mention about this. During both the elimination matches, I actually liked the fact that there was so much going on that Michael Cole could not shill at us so much because he had to keep people on track of what was going on in terms of who was eliminated, who was currently in the match being tagged in, and then who was going out. All those kind of things. He had to keep up with that. And actually, that was actually pretty good. He was actually being play-by-play more than just a shill and more than just giving us like the normal gobbledygook that he always does. So I actually liked that part. I thought Beth Phoenix added a bit to the commentary for the women's side. I actually enjoyed that. And they had a hell of a match. Now, yeah, a little convoluted seeing Candice LeRae and Io Shirai leaving the match only to come back in later. Whatever. But the NXT crowd, now, okay, people are really up about Rhea Ripley. And listen, don't get me wrong. She's great. She's got a good look. She's strong. She's got good submission moves. She, Kevin Cass, I'll stress again on Twitter, says this is the character that Becky Lynch should have been. Yeah. But Rhea Ripley, what else do we know about her? What really, of all the women we had on NXT right there, when you looked at 3 out of the 5 stars, give me really, try to give me some substance more than 5 minutes long on each Rhea Ripley, Candice LeRae, and Toni Storm. What do you know about their characters? What can you tell me in 5 minutes each? You can't. because there's not much about them. This person is the this to this, and this person is the this to this, and this person is the this to this. That's it. That's all that is. That's all we got. Otherwise, we know them from probably the Mae Young Classic or coming in from NXT and working strong and having great matches together. Otherwise, there is nothing else, right? You could not bring Rhea Ripley up to the main roster and there's nothing to work off of. It would be bringing her up from scratch. Yes, great worker, but again, that a great worker does not a WWE superstar make. There has to be promo cutting ability, and then I'm not talking about promo cutting ability where you could just put her backstage into some prepackaged thing or have her talk for a couple of minutes, in front of a crowd. Like, you need people that are able to go ahead and cut long-winded promos, able to go ahead and really get that heel crowd or get a face crowd and really get them behind. And it's not just from the work, it's the way they work the crowd. Listen to what I just said. Of a lot of these NXT stars, you have to ask yourself, you just can't work the match. You have to work the crowd. Who on that NXT roster is able to work the crowd? Kevin Owens? Yes. Tommaso Ciampa? Yes. And you know who else I think we can do it too? Adam Cole. But who else out of that roster can work, that actually effectively works the crowd? That responds, that communicates, that conveys to the crowd. Who does? Ask yourself that question. Who does? I don't see it. Do you? My point exactly. So keep that in mind. That's where we are. You have to be able to work the crowd. And that's just a traditional wrestling thing. The best wrestlers we've ever seen were able to work the crowd. Unless they were just something else larger than life. One of the only exceptions I can think of is Andre the Giant. Because Andre the Giant was an attraction. You can't make a guy like that. Right? China, you couldn't make a woman like that. I mean, if for a larger than life, but we're talking about all these people right here that for the most part, they're just, there's nothing really big difference that makes them significantly a wrestler. Now, I'm talking about a WWE superstar, larger than life wrestler. Rhea Ripley looks like somebody out of MMA, or looks like somebody that, could be a women's wrestler, but I'm talking about not wrestling anywhere. I'm talking about a WWE superstar. We all know what that is supposed to be. We all know that's what we think it's supposed to be. So, again, I do not knock the work effort of all these NXT stars. This NXT winning the match, the Women's Survivor Series match, was fantastic. They were really well and good. And they're great wrestlers. And they look great. And they are very talented. And they put some shame to some of the stars that they have on the other sides. Because let me tell you, Lacey Evans, Dana Brooke, Carmella, Sarah Logan, they all got a bit, really, they all got a little bit suspect. When you look at them all out there, they all kind of look suspect compared to those NXT stars. Let me tell you something. The NXT stars, hungry, also underpaid. When you see them for the last month, they've been working so hard, busting their ass on the main roster, but yet, they're probably not getting paid for it. They're just getting the opportunity, and that's all it is. It's more or less almost like an evaluation. Okay, can one of these stars make their way up to the main roster now? You got to ask yourself the question. That's one of the things that could be considered when you're seeing all these stars together. Now, moving along. There's a big difference when you see in that Champions Triple Threat match, AJ Styles, Roderick Strong, Shinsuke Nakamura. Shinsuke, listen, these three had a great match together. I really enjoyed Nigel McGuinness giving probably the best, putting over Roderick Strong like a mother. But remember, and everybody has to understand this, and Jerry Lawler doesn't have a clue what's going on. Probably doesn't even understand. Nigel McGuinness, Roderick Strong, these guys used to work each other. They used to have championship matches together in Ring of Honor. These guys know each other very well. If I'm right, I think Roderick Strong and Nigel McGuinness probably not that far in age either. But remember, these are like some of the original big top-profile Ring of Honor world champions. And also TV champions in their own right as well. These, they're big stars. Nigel McGuinness was a big deal in Ring of Honor back in the day. And so was Roderick Strong. So seeing those two together, hearing, Nigel McGuinness putting Roderick Strong over, he would know him best. And I thought Nigel McGuinness, man, he fits so well in that main roster commentary because he just gave poignant stuff. But that's what he's been doing for years, even when he was working with Kevin Kelly in Ring of Honor and working with Mauro Ranallo. Nigel McGuinness is just fantastic on commentary. He fits in. He's got the accent. He just knows his shit. He's so damn good at it. And he has gotten better since coming to NXT. I will give him that. I think working in NXT, he has gotten better because he's also had some really great talent. Kevin Kelly, notwithstanding, Kevin Kelly is good. But Mauro Ranallo is another step up. And I think Nigel it does feel like, it's almost like you feel like you can see he's trying to step up to stay with the amplification, the intensity. Nigel McGuinness has had to work with really intense figures that are really excited and good at their commentary. And so you have to give that. So Nigel McGuinness looking great out there. And honestly, Jerry Lawler looked like he was a little bit miffed. Because the fuck are you talking about this guy for, Roderick Strong? I don't know who he is. He's not hot stuff Eddie Gilbert. He's not, he's not, Cowboy Bill Watts. Like, who is this guy? So, yeah, I get it. Again, the old school, not knowing what the new school is. And Roderick Strong fits the new school mold of what wrestlers look like and what wrestlers are. But Roderick Strong was not brought here for promo ability or for how he cuts promos. No, it has to do with his work rate, period. That's what he's all about. Moving along. Adam Cole, Pete Dunne. No big thing about Adam Cole retaining the title over Pete Dunne. Thought they had a pretty decent match, but I also thought this crowd, the Chicago crowd, which has quite a bit of a mainstream influence, a lot of mainstream people in there, didn't give a shit about this match. They were quiet and on their hands. Now, yes, you could make the excuse, well, they had such a hot triple threat match before that this match was going to go and get a little bit of a breather, but it shouldn't matter. I thought these guys also kicked ass, but, they're going to make the excuses about it, and I think that both of these guys, because it was an NXT match, they got shit on, and it wasn't really given a real, if this was an NXT crowd or if this was a takeover match last night, would have been treated differently. If it was in the Full Sail Arena, would have been treated much differently as well. 10 minutes, 10 seconds for The Fiend defeating Daniel Bryan. Honestly, I didn't like the build of the match because of what they had Daniel Bryan say. His passion and his insanity or his craziness. It's kind of stupid. I mean, I get where they were trying to get at it, but I still didn't like the way they made him cut the promo. I thought what they gave him to talk about was shit. So I didn't like that part. I think Miz kind of helped matters, trying to go and bridge the whole story behind it. And trying to add the fact that Daniel Bryan needed to have a different mindset to beat up on The Fiend. And I will give credit, man. Bray Wyatt's been kept strong. I didn't like the way they did the count out with Seth Rollins, but at Crown Jewel, I will say that Crown Jewel, the right person won. I think the match went way too long, and they went through way too much shit to try to get where they were. And this match with Bray Wyatt and Daniel Bryan, I thought was pretty decent amount of time. And the outcome was good. And let me tell you, now Bray Wyatt looks like it looks like the corner's getting turned around on him. I think whatever I felt like they were really doing to ruin his character, I mean, it still is not perfect. The red lighting sucks. But I think the character and I think the way they're booking him, he's starting to become a bigger star. And he is no Undertaker. But he's getting to be a bigger star. And I think the mystique of this gimmick, because he is so different than anything else they have, I think WWE needs to make sure to try to keep him strong because they cannot afford to see him fail. I don't think they can afford it. I think they need to be able to be careful about what's going to happen with him. So I don't know. But so far, Bray Wyatt's all right. But he's only going to be one cog in the system, in the machine that is WWE, that needs to be able to get more people. They need to be able to get more people over. Bray Wyatt is over. Big time. They have to get other stars over. Stars that are able to work the crowd, not just work the ring. Remember that. That's what I think most of the mainstream fans and a lot of Twitter fans out there, the Twitter universe that is all big about wrestling, they all forget about that. AEW, you can say what you want about that crowd. I mean, let's see, about that roster. But look at some of the stars they have. When you look at baby faces, Cody Rhodes, he works that crowd. When you look at Chris Jericho, he works that crowd. When you look at MJF, he works that crowd. Jon Moxley works that crowd, along with great wrestling ability from all of them. What's so wrong about that? And some people just are upset about it because of the people that they are and all of the bullshit that led to where they got to today. And the truth is, I think with some people that are really just kind of miffed about AEW, they got to get past that. They have to get past their whatever transgressions they have and just understand that the product's what it is. Or they just feel like that, you know, anything that is going to take some of the spotlight away from WWE, well, people need to shit on, and that's why we're going to have the disciples against the super fans, and the sycophantic ranting and raving and battling each other on bullying on Twitter is going to continue. It's just going to froth into something that's going to be out of control. But what are you going to do there? All I'm going to do is stay on the fence and continue to call it out for the bullshit that it is. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. Now, moving along, T-SmackDown, all that matters in this match you need to know is that Roman Reigns is the lone survivor. That's a big deal. That's a very big deal. Now, with SmackDown, Roman Reigns was the only person that mattered. Braun Strowman, what an afterthought. I mean, really, afterthought. Now, Seth Rollins getting pinned by Keith Lee, that was quite impressive. So NXT gets the near win, which was actually pretty well done. I actually enjoyed that. And interesting also, I forget who it was that Tommaso Ciampa beat, who he pinned during the match, but I thought he looked strong as well. Oh, that's right. Tommaso Ciampa pinned Randy Orton. That's right. Randy Orton can work a crowd. Out of all the people we have right there, Roman Reigns works the crowd. Randy Orton works the crowd. I can't stress this enough. But really, I think that's what has to be understood, is working the crowd and working the ring. That's what is imperative. Google that word. Imperative to what WWE needs to have of their superstars. And if they don't, then they're unable to. Sorry, Becky Lynch is not working the crowd. She's not that good at it. I don't care what anybody says. She's just not that good at it. Now, the Brock Lesnar match with Rey Mysterio, it is what it is. Brock winning. Again, they don't have anybody ready for him to go ahead and take on. I don't know if Cain Velasquez comes back into the picture or not, but again, was in and out. Shayna Baszler winning the match was good, but Shayna Baszler having to wrestle WWE style exposed her. Listen, she is great in NXT, and she works good the submission style. But when they had her have to throw some of her punches and things like that, and some of the orchestrations she had, I don't know if it just felt like some of what she had to do working a three-way match with Becky Lynch and Bayley felt off. And Shannon Baszler looked a little bit, she kind of looked green in this match. And that's not normal for her, but that's kind of what it felt like here. I think having to work this three-way match and knowing where she was in a totem pole as a top star, the top women's wrestler in NXT, and then being brought into this mix, she looked a little bit deer in the headlights tonight. But still very strong, dominant. I like that. And I actually like NXT winning overall the Survivor Series because I hope this will create rift and riots and it really will make both Raw and SmackDown erupt and step their game up. Maybe it does. I don't know. Because that's the way that WWE decided to book this whole pay-per-view. I thought that was a good thing, and I hope it resonates into something we get for WrestleMania or to further feuds. But I think there's a few things we got out of this. I think Charlotte and Asuka are going to start going after each other again. I know that was pretty obvious. I'm not sure what to think about the other matches, but again, it was there wasn't much to be said about what you were going to get in terms of long-term storytelling from this pay-per-view, but there's a few things telling about what this is overall. And that's one thing I just really noticed about this a lot. So Survivor Series, again, a B pay-per-view. It was good tonight. All right, let me work on War Games right now. NXT TakeOver last night, which, look, let me just get to the real point of everything. They were excellent matches last night. I mean, seriously, War Games was, if you want like a freaking Barnum and Bailey Circus, greatest show on earth type of deal, with a lot of high spots, shit, they threw in the kitchen sink. NXT TakeOver War Games was the kitchen sink of all high spot pay-per-views. Like, they went farther on the high spots, I think, than probably, without going into fire tables and barbed wire and all the overly extreme stuff. They went over the top. They overkilled on all the matches. I mean, look, yes, they gave you some memorable moments. I mean, Adam Cole getting that move by Ciampa off the top off the top of the cage into the double tables. I mean, what the hell, man? And then Io Shirai doing a moonsault off the top of the cage. Like, it really just going. I mean, like, and also in the end of the men's match, crescendo. Okay, here's Keith Lee through a table, Kevin Owens with a table, this and that tables, and end. Like, it was really like the orchestration, the way they put all that together. Like, that was a very fun match. Listen, NXT puts really fun matches out. The men's War Games match, I said, was the best match of NXT I've seen since the 5-way match for the North American title to crown the first ever inaugural North American champion. It was really that good. At least I was. And shit. I mean, across the board. Okay, look. The women's War Game match, the Dakota Kai heel turn was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. I thought they did a damn good job. And I think, you know, some people kind of got miffed to seeing there were only two faces left and they were only going to beat the heels. I don't give a shit. It was fine. Pete Dunne beating Damian Priest, Killian Dane. These are all three guys that, listen, good workers. Damian Priest, you know, the archer of whatever he is. But again, you know, there's not much of a difference between him and Punishment Martinez. This is a little bit of a change of gimmick. But really, we don't have anything else much about him because they don't work on him. He doesn't work the crowd. None of them. Those three guys just work with each other in the ring. The crowd is just watching along. But they're really not necessarily emotionally invested in each guy. Finn Balor and Matt Riddle. I mean, Matt Riddle, I wish he would get more with the crowd. Like, the whole bro thing is, we need to see him more engaged with the crowd. And Finn Balor is a bit engaged with the crowd. I mean, the entrance helps a lot, but really there's not much else. And I thought they had a very good match. But again, the War Games match for the men, shit, they just went over the top. It was something else. I will admit about that. So it was an A pay-per-view for last night. But again, they can't keep that level of style up. They can't. There's no way that they could do it. Now, yes, no titles were on the line, but seriously, you can't keep that level of like overkill, high spots, and near falls. You can't keep that up forever. But again, I will bring that up on Wednesday because I got more to say about that. But I just want to say about the pay-per-views, they were very good, but there's just an overlying problem with WWE in general that has to be addressed. And I'm going to go into more context about that coming up on the next show because I'll have more time to talk about it. And I think, based on how everything goes, I think I'll start my year in review of WWE for the year 2019. Because what I want to do is I want to be able to do it where I can do it over like 6 episodes. So, you know, I have some post shows I got to do coming up. When you look at the upcoming schedule, actually, as a matter of fact, we only have one left. That's right. Because we got coming up is the weekend of the 13th, 14th, 15th, where we'll have Final Battle, Into the Fire, and TLC all in the same weekend. So then we'll have one more post show, and I'm going to try to get everything done where if I have to do a secondary show, like if I have to do a second show during a week, to get through all of the chronicling, because the year of 2019 in wrestling is expansive. There's so much that happened this year. We're going to have to go through it, take a couple of months at a time. The normal run through of the year in review is not going to be like it was before, so I'm going to take it and stretch it out a little bit longer because there's so much to be brought up about it. So we're going to go into and really analyze the entire year and everything that's happened in one of the most evolutionary, biggest changes, honestly, a seismic shift in the world of pro wrestling in 2019. We're going to go through all that coming up, starting on the next Wrestling is Real podcast. Come back for episode 500 of the Wrestling is Real podcast coming up, because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast, brought to you by KingofAmazon.com. Help support the King of Podcasts. Shop now at KingofAmazon.com.